Well, one of the things that you touched on, I really want to touch on this too for the audience out there, or whoever's sitting in their basement with a tinfoil hat on, you know. So I want to talk about the psychologist and the psychiatrist, because I think this is something that people don't know enough about to truly understand it, and to understand that there's a synergistic effect between these professionals. The psychologist is the behavioralist, and in my opinion, they saved my life. The psychologists that I saw, they were the ones that showed me how to change the behavior by identifying it. Through cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectic behavioral therapy, and you guys can look this up online, and various other modalities that exist. Now, when you get to the psychiatrist, the MD, one is a PhD, one is an MD, and this is not one above the other, because I truly believe that going into this, that one is above the other. It's not. We're talking about two different fields for the same reason, as to help the patient. So, John, you're a living example of somebody who utilizes both, right? You have the medicated side, but the medicated side is not a cure. And it's really important that people understand that, because I don't think a lot of people do. I have plenty of friends and loved ones that believe that the medication alone is going to be enough, and it is not enough. There's the recognition that's required for the behavioral changes. And that's where the psychologist comes in. And they really are amazing people. And this is not to diminish the efforts of the psychiatrist. It's just understanding that one does one thing and the other does the other. It's not one above the other. It's that when the psychologist will identify more often than not if medication is needed. But now let's get into the stigma associated with medication, because this is a good one. This is a really good one. There are certain conditions that require a permanent or a long-term medication solution. Absolutely. But there are times also when that medication is required to regress the patient enough to be beaten into a state of reasonableness to get treated by the psychologist, so that they will no longer require it. And you're talking to one of those right now. That they put me on, what did they put me on? They put me on Zoloft, and I did not have a good reaction to it. And Dr. Barnett, that amazing healer, she flat out told me, okay, you got a couple options. We can continue to mess around with these SSRIs, or we can knuckle down and do the hard work. And the hard work is not going to be gentle, Mike. It is going to be exhausting. It's going to be very painful. But you can do this. And I decided to stay on that track. I'm still on that track now. I'm not cured. That's the whole thing. Is I'm not cured. Am I better? I'm better than I was, but I'm not cured. And you know what? I'm totally okay with that. But then there's other aspects of medication. I was having such violent panic attacks getting on an airplane, and I'm a halo jumper. Like, I just want you to wrap your minds around this, folks, that like I jump out of airplanes at very high altitude with oxygen and all kinds of cool shit on, pardon my language. But the thought of sitting in business class on an airplane, I will have panic attacks until we hit turbulence. So they put me on Atarax, which is a very powerful antihistamine. And they were like, take 2. I was like, yeah, okay. I took 6. But over time, staying on that, tapering down until finally I can get on an airplane and I can feel it kind of start to turn on a little bit. And remember all the other times I flew prior to that, and I'm fine. And I'm so grateful for that. But again, that's the combination. Like I told my psychologist what was going on, and I had to fly around to go give these presentations. And I was like, I would literally drive down to DC in Virginia. I'm like, no, it's fine. I'll drive. We're good. I'll drive. And they're like, what the hell's wrong with him? And I was like, no, you got to get on that airplane, Mike. And I was doing everything I could to avoid it. And finally, I acquiesced to medicating. And I was very clear that I got to stay away from anything barbiturate, anything benzodiazepam, because I cannot have one chocolate. But that's for Mike. I'm not this. I got to be very clear about this to the listeners. I am talking about me. John is talking about John. It's not a one-stop shop. That works for me. So I'm not in any way, shape, or form invalidating barbiturates or benzos or any of that. I'm saying that that's what worked for me. There's another stigma inside of the stigma that I want to be very clear about, because I fell victim to that as well. And I got to tell you, those internal stigmas are more damaging than the external stigmas. You're hearing it from the horse's mouth.